Support for Wrestlezona comes from the Wrestling Guy Store Phoenix, offering wrestling-themed merchandise and collectibles. More information at WGSPHX.com. That is WGSPHX.com. Hope you're having an amazing one, Wrestlezona family, whenever you happen to be tuning in, and welcome back. My name is Lance Reece, your definitive host for the hour. I've been a fan of professional wrestling since I was about 6 years old, begging my parents to buy me action figures ever since I saw videos of Jeff Hardy's Swanton bombing on YouTube. We have another packed episode for you today, as we here on episode 31 of Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse will cover what's happening in the world of WWE, All Elite Wrestling, the Indies, and even wrestling here local in the Valley. Stay tuned to hear my coverage of AEW Maximum Carnage, Dynamite and Collision, which just happened here in Phoenix, as well as an exclusive interview with Tucson news reporter and PCWAZ commentator Charlie Goldberg. Hopping straight into the meat and bones of recent wrestling coverage, Wrestlezona had the privilege and honor of covering the recent AEW Dynamite and Collision tapings Maximum Carnage live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Arizona Financial Theater. For Dynamite, which aired on TBS and HBO Max, it was a gargantuan night of action, and we saw some pretty good action. Of course, I got to see some of the action straight up for myself, so it was amazing. In the opening bout, Darby Allin defeated Pac. As well as in the following matchup, Hangman Adam Page defeated Brian Keith. Hangman Swerve and Kenny Omega were all in the ring talking about who would be coming for MJF's title. Of course, Kenny Omega returning that night. He got a little swerved by Don Callis, who is setting up a match between him and Josh Alexander for Kenny Omega to prove himself worthy as a challenger for MJF's belt. Brody King faced and dominated Jonathan Cruz in a four-way tag match, and a winner earns a future AEW World Tag Team Championship match with FTR stipulation. The Don Callis family representatives of Mark Davis and Jake Doyle defeated Jet Speed of Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight, the Young Bucks Matt and Nick Jackson, and GOA, Toa Leona, and Bishop Khan. Skyflight had a busy Saturday ahead of them on Collision. In a trios match on Dynamite, the Triangle of Madness defeated AEW Women's World Champion Chris Statlander and the AEW Women's World Tag Team Champions, the Babes of Wrath. Hangman Adam Page and Jet Speed then went on to challenge the Ops for the AEW World Trios titles that Saturday at Collision. And then in the main event, AEW World Champion MJF retained his championship in a match against the Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito. During that, MJF did show his due diligence to Bandito, saying he was a worthy challenger for the belt after being a little doubtful, of which he then beat him up. That was a fantastic main event and a fantastic night for Dynamite, but the action wasn't over, as it was taped ahead for Saturday, and Wrestlezona firsthand got to see the action. And last night on Saturday at Collision, Hangman Adam Page and Jet Speed defeated the Ops of Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Katsuyori Shibata to become the new AEW World Trios champions, as well as Andrade El Idolo defeated Angelico Serpentico. Eddie Kingston and Ortiz defeated the grizzled young veterans of Zach Gibson and James Drake, as well as Marina Schaefer defeats Zeta Steel in singles action. Moving forward, El Clon, Josh Alexander, and Kyle Fletcher defeat Skyflight. Megan Bain and Penelope Ford defeat Viva Van and Danielle Camilla. And in the main event for a number one contender match for AEW National Champion Ricochet, Jungle Jack Perry defeats Anthony Bowens in the action. Of course, this is just the rundown. If you want to see some photos that Wrestlezona took and even more coverage, you'll want to head to 887thepulse.com or Wrestlezona.com to see the two articles, both for Dynamite and Collision, to see the coverage of the action and to hear more personally about the fun that was had that night. Again, thank you to AEW for the opportunity to cover the event. AEW will be back on Saturday, March 7th at Tucson. The first time AEW comes to Tucson for a filming of Collision. For Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, I'm Lance Reece. We have some exciting themes coming up for you, as well as our exclusive interview with PCWAZ commentator Charlie Goldberg. But first, last weekend, I had mentioned that we would get some quick results for you from PCWAZ's January 10th showing at the Eagles Community Center. In that event, during the pre-show, the team of City Boys Brady Utah and Trey Carter earned their right for a PCW Tag Team Championship match later in the evening, as well as in the beginning of the card, Young Money defeated the team Fly Death. John Wolfgang defeated Baker Jeffcoat. Lord Draco defeated a debuting X-Storm. Jacob East defeated Joey Hendricks. Stanley Logan went on to defeat Damon Ace. And then in said tag team championship bout, Pretty City Express dominated and retained the PCW Tag Team Championships against City Boys. Zamaya went on to retain the PCW Women's Championship against Taylor York. And then Remy Marcel defeated Enrique Calderon and Tommy Two Scoops to retain the Slam U Championship in what was initially a singles bout between Remy Marcel and Enrique Calderon, which then MBW, who would go on to actually turn against Tommy Two Scoops in the Mega Test Warriors, helped cash in Tommy Two Scoops' trophy to gain a chance for the Slam U Championship. But of course, he would have turned on his tag team partner. An insane heel turn that we have no idea where that's going to head yet. And of course, in that main event, Jimmy House defeated Freddie Cordova. What an insane night for the action. Their next event is coming up on March 14th, something to look forward to in the local wrestling scene. I'm Lance Reece. Have you been enjoying the show so far? Well, don't go anywhere, because we now have our exclusive interview with Charlie Goldberg happening now. For Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, I'm Lance Reece, and I would like to welcome to our studios a very special guest by the name of Charlie Goldberg. Welcome to the KVIT FM studios.
Thank you so much. This building's so nice. It's great to be here.
It is a very nice building, and, it is great to have you. I feel like our line of work kind of crosses over a bit in certain areas, and I just wanted to start off some basic questions about your background. We'll start there. So for listeners who may not know you yet, how do you introduce yourself and the different roles you take on in broadcast journalism, pro wrestling, and even mixed martial arts?
Yeah, I'm a news reporter full-time up in Tucson, and I've always had that love for combat sports on the side. So while I work 5 days a week in news, I spend my weekends working in the world of professional wrestling, mixed martial arts. So I do commentary, I do play-by-play, and I'm also a backstage interviewer, and yeah, I get involved with fighters and news. Weird mix.
That is a weird mix, but I feel like there's got to be some crossover of personality there time to time. But you are originally from Long Island, kind of that area in New York, and last year you graduated from Syracuse University. What first pulled you into broadcast journalism?
Yeah, the big thing and the joke I always say is I was always fighting for attention with my twin sister. I have a twin, and I kind of made a career out of that. That's normally the joke. But I started off realizing that I could tell stories and be on camera. I did that in high school. I actually had a media club in high school with a green screen blanket and a $100 camera, and that's what I ran with for 4 years in high school. This facility is a lot more impressive than what I was putting together. And from then on out, I applied to Newhouse. I got in and realized that it's not about me. I could tell stories about other people, and I could impact other people's lives. And from wanting to put myself on TV, from wanting to help others, was the big change that I realized I could make in journalism.
Very humbling, and also humbling to me to know that we might have it a little better here than you had originally, but
definitely a bigger budget.
That's to say the least. How did your time at Syracuse and working with the TV program there, Citrus TV, shape your skills into a broadcaster?
Yeah, definitely working at Syracuse. There's a lot of kids at Syracuse, just like myself when I was a student, who are just super ambitious. It's just the top echelons of students in journalism that, in my opinion, you could find anywhere in the country. It's a top school when it comes to that. And these kids are so ambitious. So being in that sea full of sharks, that made me want to become better. That made me want to grow. That made me want to do nothing more than improve. So when I started, I looked up to a lot of the seniors there. One of them being Liam Crowley, who's a mentor of mine. He's actually their lead reporter for Screen Rant Entertainment right now. If you name a celebrity, he's interviewed them. Look him up. He's awesome. So watching all of those people being mentored by them has only made me want to grow. And that's the biggest takeaway I got from being in that program.
That's a lot of great shared ambition. And beyond just shared ambition, is there a lot of shared interests between the cast of people there?
Not a lot of wrestling. Liam actually loves wrestling, so that's how I got connected to him.
That's great.
But I think the passion for storytelling is there by everybody.
Yeah.
Most people in that program working at this TV station, if they didn't love telling stories, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah. I mean, you hit a gold mine with Liam, that sounds like, with having that shared interest in wrestling. Because for me, like, wrestling is the harder one to land with someone, because you never really know until you, like, open the discussion. And the one I usually find myself aligning people with more often is music, like shared bands and artists. And you yourself, are you a fan of hard rock, kind of more the 80s, 90s era I've picked up on?
I would say that I'm weird when it comes to music. I could be listening to Billy Joel in the morning, and then I'm listening to a heavy metal band 2 minutes later called Five Finger Death Punch. Definitely a weird mix, but I have a vast interest in music. I'm not the biggest music expert, but
Good to have variety.
Yeah.
Yeah. What habits or lessons from college still guide you when you're on air or even ringside today?
I think the biggest one is, and the biggest piece of advice I was given that really stuck with me is pretend like you're talking to your mom. When I started off, you have this news voice where you're trying to sound like this and coming up next, and it doesn't sound natural. Somebody told me that you got to sound like a human being, and you got to pretend that your mom is the camera. So describe the story as if you're telling it to your mom, and I still do that every day today. So taking that lesson and making things conversational for me, I think helped me grow a lot on air, pretending that my mom was on the other side.
That is very insightful. I never considered that, pretending the parents right in front of you. You have interned with some heavy-hitting outlets. What did those experiences teach you about storytelling on a more national level?
A lot, to put it frank. I have been in stations where I've been lucky to be there in the first place. Both summers, News Nation one summer, CBS the other. I was in the station when Trump was, the assassination attempt, and seeing that place go from a typical day to just being flipped upside down on the flip of a dime kind of gave me a sneak peek into what I now do on a smaller scale, obviously. And just seeing how people operate at the top of the top, kind of like Newhouse, but in the real world, really just inspired me, and it made me want to grow even more into this thing.
So again, you are originally from New York. What motivated your move to Tucson, and how has working in the Tucson community shaped your approach to reporting?
Yeah. Well, coming out of college, not a lot of experience. First off, I moved to Tucson. I was between a couple places. Senior year, I graduated in May, and I was between Tucson, Savannah, Georgia, a couple other places that I'd be lucky to end up at. And this area just stuck out to me. Not only for the news station, not only for its ethics, but the area around it. Phoenix Championship Wrestling, Las Vegas, a plane ride away, LA, a plane ride away. There's just a lot of exciting things in Tucson, but around it as well, that just makes every weekend extremely exciting. Not only to mention what goes on in Tucson during the week. The stories that I've been able to tell, I am very lucky to do so right out of the gate.
Sort of like a center point for all the Southwest hub of events and all the crazy stuff going on. It must be like you got a lot to pick from weekend. It's like, do I want to report that or this? Do you ever find yourself having to pick and choose that way?
When it comes to news stories, or
yeah, like, is there an opportunity that you're presented like the same time another one's going on, you have to pick one or the other?
Yeah, so every day how it works is I go in and I have no clue what my day's going to look like. I could go in and they could be like, all right, you're traveling to Douglas. Go. You got a 2.5-hour drive. Yesterday, actually, I was on Mount Lemon for the day. You have no clue what your day's going to work with. And that's just the exciting thing. So I go in with a pitch, but come out not knowing. So honestly, at this point, whatever they give me, I'm doing.
You got to have all that availability. That's the best ability to have. What types of stories or aspects of the Tucson area in specific stand out to you the most so far?
Yeah. A lot of what I've done, I've talked to people who are grieving. I've talked to people who are going through horrible things, unimaginable things. I've talked to, survivors of different domestic instances, breaking news stories. I've done a lot when it comes to all that, but I think homelessness is a huge thing that stuck out to me. As somebody who lives there now full time, driving up and down the roads, there's a lot of homeless people. And I worked in New York for 2 summers, and I'm saying that about Tucson. Like those numbers to me hold up. Obviously, populations are much different, but Tucson has a real homeless issue. So being able to go to like food kitchens, being able to go to this place called the Gospel Rescue Mission, which kind of helps homeless people get back on their streets, seeing how people are not only helping the homeless, but trying to battle drug addiction, fentanyl that's crossing the border, making people's lives better. I think that's the most impactful thing that I've been able to do so far. Whenever I'm doing a homeless story about getting the word out on how to help out, that's what makes me very grateful at the end of the day.
Beyond the, as you mentioned, a greater sense of impact on the community, do you feel a personal sense of belief for reporting stories of that nature?
I think I really like to be a robot in this type of scenario because, you can't get biased either way. I try my best not to be emotional either way, which is something, I'm only 7 months in. I'm still learning. I have so much to learn.
Yeah.
So trying to be that robot and report what I see, unbiased, get all the facts I can, and present it in a manner, I think that's the way to go about it, if that answers your question.
It does. It was insightful. Thank you. How do you balance the seriousness of news reporting with the performance and energy that you bring to pro wrestling commentary?
That's the question I get often, because it's two very different sides of Charlie. Because wrestling me is over the top, sometimes annoying, sometimes too much. And news, like I said, you got to be that robot with obviously personality sprinkled in, being a reporter, being having a TV presence, but you got to be that robot, especially if you're doing a story about a murder. You can't go in there like you're calling Monday Night Raw. That's a big no-no. So it's very tough to really handle that, but I feel like wrestling is just me. I feel like that energy is me every single day. So news reporting is kind of where I have to work on that and be a more serious human being. Wrestling, though, it's the shift in character is easy.
It doesn't feel exaggerated to you? It just
Wrestling's always exaggerated.
Well, yeah, but it just comes from the heart is more what I mean.
But I'm a very over-the-top person who exaggerates all the time.
You're perfect for the job.
Not on the news. Not on the news. Let me get that straight.
Yeah.
But in the world of wrestling, I think the larger-than-life presence that is emulated by the stars in the ring just easily just translates to me.
That's great. So more into professional wrestling. When did you first become a fan of pro wrestling, and who were your early favorites?
Yeah, so very hot take. You're gonna be like, what? Oh my God! The first wrestling show that I watched was Wrestlemania 27, and I fell in love, which is not what a lot of people say about it in hindsight.
They might say the opposite.
Exactly.
Fact, yeah.
And on top of that, The Miz was the first wrestler that I really wanted to emulate. He was my favorite right out of the gate. And if you were to say who is my all-time favorite, it's still The Miz to this day. I guess I was just a bad kid then. And that's because I just loved the heels growing up. I've always loved the heels. Even as a kid, when I would go to WWE shows with a group of friends who, sadly outgrew wrestling, in their words, not mine, I was always the one cheering for the bad guy. And it always confused them. So I was always a huge Miz stan. And WrestleMania 27, I think just seeing those larger-than-life characters come to life and just seeing the show and the production and, the event might not be great in hindsight, but that stage, in my opinion, is goated too, in Atlanta, Georgia. I think just all of that really made me fall in love with wrestling, and I just dove into that wormhole. And it just got worse and worse and worse, my addiction ever since.
I am very shocked to hear, not The Miz, but Mania 27. I do feel like, to this day, Miz is very underappreciated for the work he's put into beyond WWE, just the business.
If you can name one bad promo he's done in the last 10 years, I will give you $100 right now.
I'm flat out broke. And I want to mention something you said, because I feel like there was an undertone I'll go with that. I'm saying this with air quotes. You said your friends who grew out of wrestling. Do you feel like people who say they grew out of wrestling, it's more since they just fall out of touch for it for a bit? Because I feel that sense too. I did fall out for a bit before picking it back up a couple of years ago.
So we're living in a very different time right now, where in the past couple of years, wrestling has had this beautiful resurgence, where it's become hot again, where those friends who, I told you about are now DMing me talking about wrestling.
Yeah.
And it came out of nowhere. And when I was in high school, I had nobody to talk to wrestling about. In a class full of 1,000 kids, I couldn't find one other person who liked the WWE, or at least they probably kept it a secret
Yeah.
because they were, quote, embarrassed by it, which I never saw. I always thought that was a stupid mentality to have. But once I got to college, everything just exploded when it came to wrestling fans. Once Cody Rhodes debuted and all of that, the ball just kept rolling. And now I can't go somewhere where I can't meet a wrestling fan,
Yeah.
obviously in a big crowd. So just it's a very different mindset now, and hopefully, the kids watching it won't, quote, outgrow it because the business is so good right now and the stories that they're telling right now.
That speaks to me in volumes, because even like I could say as of today, or when I go to class even now, I feel like I am the only wrestling fan in the room. And even if I like try to tell stories or interest within wrestling that could kind of cross over with stuff that's not particularly in the ring, because it might not be everyone's cup of tea, I still find trouble with it. So that is a very compelling story to me. And one of my favorite things I've seen of you is a video clip on your Instagram account of you in the classroom showing your class Adam Cole versus Ricochet at Brooklyn
Yep.
4. That is, even before I saw that, has been one of my favorite matches, period. That super kick spot, Adam Cole, Ricochet is upside down. That is great work.
I was actually, funny you say Adam Cole, I was actually about to mention him, how, back when he was in the WWE and, before he got injured in AEW, I always did something called the Adam Cole test to see if there were any wrestling fans in the room, where I'd be in a room full of people and I'd shout Adam Cole. And whoever said baby, instant friend.
That's it.
Now it's a different story, so I got to find a new test. I'm thinking Kit Wilson, but his song's just been stuck in my head all week. That's just a different story.
Or you might just have to yell out, "Whose house?"
Yeah, Swerve.
See where that leads you. So back to being a fan, you being a genuine fan and your passion for it, how has that helped you in your work becoming a commentator and interviewer for many promotions alike?
Like I said before, it's natural, and I try my best now. And this is a lesson I'm also learning, to kind of separate myself as a fan to being a broadcaster. I feel like wrestling has a lot of very serious journalists, but it needs to be taken more seriously for those people who, follow sports and still have the audacity to say, "Oh, it's fake. I could do that." I think if you have broadcasters who treat themselves, to a standard, they wear a suit every day, they go in kind of like that, I think that makes wrestling all the more legit. So when it comes to just being a fan, that part's easy. Telling
Yeah.
the stories is easy because it's like me being the fan. It's me enjoying it. But doing it as trying to be as legit as possible, that's where the challenge comes in. If that answers your question at all.
That
I
resonates.
think I went in circles a little bit.
No. It correlates with me, and it does resonate with me, because I feel like a lot of fans do lose that sense of professionalism that is in the business, and it is very important to keep it alive, especially in a time where the business seems as professional as it's ever been with TKO. And I know that's probably compelling to you as well, because TKO, they host WWE and UFC at this point. So it's a crossover for I'd say at this point people like us that are very professional, diehard fans of the business, and there's a lot of crossover and appeal there.
Yeah, and then you have these UFC fans who are commenting, "Oh, it's fake," and then vice versa, the WWE fans who are like, "Oh, it's too violent."
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous.
Just enjoy it.
Enjoy it, yeah. At that point, but you've worked or done a lot of work with promotions on both coasts of the U.S. What differences have you noticed between the wrestling scenes in New York and here in Arizona?
It's a very good question. I think one thing right off the gate that is similar, not different, is that these guys live, breathe wrestling. We say we live, breathe wrestling. I haven't taken a Michinoku driver, so I haven't been tombstoned. So I can't say that like these guys can say that. And on both coasts, everybody I've worked with has just been live, breathe this business. And that's something I love to see. That's a similarity on both coasts. I think the audiences are very different, different tastes, different chants, different atmospheres. But I think PCW is just a whole new ball game too. I loved where I worked before for World Championship Wrestling. They gave me my start. I will never disparage them. But Phoenix, it really feels like a huge step for me. Just seeing how legit PCW is, seeing Dom in action. I think he's, as great as a promoter as it gets. And once again, I worked for an incredible two places, One Up Wrestling and Immortal Championship Wrestling. It's just a different coast with different establishing stars. So I think not a lot of differences between the wrestling. A lot of it is the same, but just different experiences overall.
To tie some pieces together, you mentioned just now the difference of fans, and you had also mentioned, just general traveling. And something I've noticed through interviewing some stars of Phoenix Championship that have also worked the surrounding states, most notably California with PCW Ultra. It's crazy how even a state away, the vast difference in reactions and types of fans you will get. I've been told, and I cannot say this personally, but that the California crowds are a little snarky, and it's kind of insane. That's like a 4-5 hour drive away from here.
I mean, when you're paying $18 for a water bottle, I'd be smarky too.
There you have it. Yeah.
So if I lived there, I wouldn't have any money.
So,
I don't know how they afford those $10 pancakes.
That's why we keep
per
it
pancake.
Here. Yeah. So you had mentioned ICW, and you have called matches there for the likes of the legendary Minoru Suzuki, as well as, just to name another one, the former Impact World Champion Steve Macklin. Again, just to name a few. What stood out to you about calling matches there with such major names of the industry?
Minoru Suzuki was special. That was a special day. You felt a buzz in the locker room that day like I haven't felt before. So I think what stood out to me was just everybody, because it was an atmosphere that I've been in. It was a tremendous atmosphere that I'm yet to really feel since. Not saying, there's different types of special atmospheres. When PCW Anniversary 7 happened, that was the biggest crowd that I've done with wrestling, and that felt like a different atmosphere that I've never experienced before. So there's different heights that it comes to this business, I feel like, on the indie scene that I've been fortunate enough to experience, and I think that really was my big takeaway from that event. Calling Minoru Suzuki a pro like that really just made me humbled. Getting to call that match with two people who mentored me, my co-commentators, Cody Jean and Justin Parker at the time. Honestly, special is the word that comes to mind. It was exciting, it was special, and Minoru Suzuki, those slaps are not soft. So it was easy to call that one.
Could hear without the headset, yeah. Would you say, you mentioned that it's different atmospheres in different places, but more than that, do you think it's time and place with the energy and the atmosphere?
Absolutely. I think each card creates a different buzz. Who you have on the card, like we said before, creates an even bigger buzz, and I think it's the time and the place. That's why these events happen on a Saturday and not a Wednesday night. No work the next day. People are excited. They want to see some wrestling, and especially when a story comes to a fold. Just a work of art.
And they got another weekend day to process everything after falling
Absolutely.
asleep. What have been some of your favorite locker room personalities to work with?
Okay. This one, do you want me to go from like the kind of more established people who you would know, or do you want me to kind of just say like some indie names that I'll say some
go where
indie
you
names.
want with this. Yeah.
Right off the bat, there's this guy called Sebastian Braun. And to break kayfabe a little bit, his character is a man who pretends that he is the best-looking person on the planet, the good-looking god.
Mm-hmm.
He is over 300 pounds, I believe. 6 foot. He's a monster of a man. He's very hairy. And the kids all chant, "You're hairy, you're ugly," and stuff. But this guy comes out and he acts, like he's the sexiest man alive.
Yeah.
So while my co-commentators would be like, "Oh, he's disgusting, he's despicable," because he's a heel,
Yeah.
I, as a babyface even, would just glaze him up, would just nonstop say, "What are you talking about? Like, he's the in-ring Romeo, the good-looking god." I had the irresistible force was my favorite line that I came up with for him.
Nice.
I think working with him in the back and kind of going over with him, all right, these are the lines I want to present for you, and seeing his reaction to that really was very fun. And he was always a big personality around. A locker room leader was a guy named Mike Skyros, the Moonlight Son, who's a New York indie veteran. He's been on the scene for the longest time. He's somebody who is well overdue to get their shot anywhere. Like, if you look him up, when it comes to talent on the independents, he's top tier in New York State. He's faced off against Mike Santana recently. He was the one to battle Minoru Suzuki. He's legit as legit gets. Another one is Shane Stetson. With Sebastian Braun, Shane Stetson was his tag team partner. Hot stuff. His father, Chip, is a veteran in the business, so getting to learn from him and his father was just something incredible. He's an incredible talent as well, who's now working with Natalia. They moved to Florida, so he's training at the Dungeon currently.
Oh, okay.
So there are huge things for him on the horizon as well.
Yeah, that's a big deal. You provoked a question in me, and I'm really curious. And as on-air friendly as possible, what is your favorite wrestling chant you have heard from a crowd?
Favorite wrestler? I mean, I gotta say Goldberg because I'm biased.
Yeah.
I love when NXT UK years ago was running. I loved if you hate Zach Gibson, take your shoes off. I don't know why that one sticks out because I just always imagine, especially with wrestling fans. I love wrestling fans, but no offense, you're going to that arena, everyone's got their shoes off.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's smelling in there. Must
Uh,
really show that, pun intended, he stinks. So that always stuck with me.
For me, if you want to go local, Devin Reno, the Mr. Clean chants, classic to me. It
Yeah.
always gets a kick out of me. Going back to some stories from ICW, you briefly became the 24/7 Dippin' Donuts champion. Please
Wow.
tell us the full story behind that.
You got the name and everything. Love the research. Yeah. Do you want the Netflix Unreal version, or how do you want this?
How do you want to present it, Charlie?
I never went in with the intention. Actually, I felt awful when they presented me the idea of winning the 24/7 championship at first because they came to me and I was like, listen, these guys, these men and women, they put their bodies on the line. They're going through all this stuff just to achieve and win a championship and have that around their waist. And for me to just come in here after sitting, I put in work, but I sit in a chair and I just talk. For me to be a champion, I didn't feel like I was worthy. So I actually asked around the locker room, and they were like, listen, Charlie, you're not becoming the world champion or the TV champion, the Northeast title is what they called it.
Yeah.
You're the Dippin' Donuts champion. Like, you're good. So I was like, all right, I guess that's my green light. So now that, they're going to reward me with this title, how am I going to make the best out of it? Because the idea came is that they wanted some exposure when it came to Syracuse University, their student station. They wanted me to do some shots at the station. They thought it would be good for the Dippin' Donuts title. And they wanted me to bring out a creative side to it. So when I won the belt, I rolled over some guy. I forgot his name. I don't remember. But there was this other guy who was like the R-Truth of that division, named Brother Jonas.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a story that we put together where he would come to Syracuse University after weeks of mock news reports that I would film on my own in the studio with the title, saying nobody's going to get me. I'm the greatest ever, blah, 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 blah. And then we put together this video that I'm very proud of, where Jonas would come to Syracuse. He'd chase me all around campus, and it would meet in a final battle where it would be me and him in a classroom full of all my friends. I was in a fraternity in college, and I reached out in the group chat to all the brothers, and I said, listen, I'm defending a championship. I'd love for you guys to see this. And many of them had no clue. Like, what on earth are you talking about, Charlie? When I brought that belt to a fraternity party, that's a whole other story for a whole other time. But yeah, so that moment definitely was one of my favorites ever. Didn't take a bump. He spun me around, but planted me lightly, and putting that together, editing it, and creating that 3-minute video that is still up on Instagram was one of the funnier things I've done in this business.
Oh, man. I got to ask, how has your roles compared or differed between a promotion like ICW in New York and PCWAZ?
Yeah, PCW still feels very fresh. So in New York, for 3.5 years, I got to know the roster. I got to know everybody in and out. To where on commentary, notes took about 5 minutes by year 3 because I knew everybody. I knew all their moves. I knew everything about them, even honestly their in-ring psychology at that point. PCW, I'm still getting used to the roster. I'm still putting together notes, and I'm still getting to meet all these great personalities. For example, tonight, Fly Death making their debut. Never met them before. Very excited for that. So I think all of the new faces definitely turned me into a different style broadcaster. It was kind of like a fresh start, a clean slate of paper where I was able to kind of make my name as a broadcaster and present myself a little differently and present all of these new faces in a new manner. So I learned a lot from that. And I think that's been very exciting. So it's the same me, but different faces to talk about. And I think that makes change.
You have called action up in One Up Wrestling, and as well as for MMA outlets like Jackhammer Promotions. Can you tell me the biggest similarities and also the biggest differences between calling pro wrestling and MMA?
Yeah. Locker room. Wrestling. You go into that locker room, everybody breaking kayfabe again. I'm so sorry. You go into that locker room and everybody's a team. Everybody's working together. When it comes to actually MMA, there's 2 different locker rooms because people are fighting. They're not going to share a locker room if they're about to rip each other's heads off.
Yeah.
So seeing those different atmospheres was the biggest takeaway. So I go into the locker room, and normally with wrestling and MMA, I talk to all the athletes, seeing, what do you want me to really present? What is the most important aspect of the show you want me to put together? With MMA, I think that, I had to make 2 different stops. I had to go into one locker room. I had to go into the other locker room. Different coaches, different teams. It didn't feel like you're a part of a team with MMA, and rightfully so, even though I was very lucky to have that experience. So actually talking about people who hate each other's guts, or rather are trying to fight each other, really made me shift when it came to all of that.
Do you think covering MMA has improved your wrestling commentary or even vice versa?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Wrestling commentary, once again, I've been a fan of this business for, I don't know now, at least 15, 16 years. MMA, I became a fan a little over 3 years ago, so I'm very new to it. I actually trained in MMA to be a better analyst, to be a better journalist about it. So I think that, learning a new repertoire when it came to MMA really helped me, and using my wrestling commentary to talk in MMA helped me as well. But same with MMA. It brought a sense of realism to the sport of wrestling that I could interject.
What does your preparation look like before stepping into the booth for either MMA or wrestling?
Lots of notes. I spend nights before digging up every single note I can, all the stats on fighters, all the stats on wrestlers, finishers, where they're from, aspect of the story. I have a big packet of notes that I always take with me anywhere. That's the biggest part of preparation. And then pre-show matters. I go and I say, hey, what do you want me to put over? What is the most important aspect of today that you want to get across to your audience, to your social media platforms? That's my preparation when it comes to all of this. Just communication being the forefront.
I'm gonna drop some big names here for a second that you've talked to.
Let's do it.
You've interviewed names the like of Teddy Long, Caprice Coleman, and Matt Cardona. Woo woo woo. What makes for a great wrestling interview in your eyes?
Once again, communication. With wrestling, and I'm MMA as well. Talking to that person beforehand and saying, this is the question I want to ask. Do you agree with it? Do you prefer I go in a different direction? Because it's not about you. It's all about them. Interview is all about what they want to portray. So communication and talking to somebody beforehand, saying, this is what I want. Do you have a different vision? Was the biggest thing there. Matt Cardona was very easy because he actually went to the same high school I did.
Oh, wow.
He grew up in Merrick,
Long Island, yeah.
Yep. Woo, woo, woo.
Perfect.
So getting to see him was really cool, and I actually told him in person, this is we have similar paths, or very different paths rather, same high school graduation. I always looked up to you in that sense. And there's a photo of me, 10-year-old me, wearing Zack Ryder gear at Nassau Coliseum on Long Island, seeing him, that I showed him as well, which was really cool.
Nice. Was there an interview that taught you something important about talking to talent?
I think a big one would be in a place called One Up Wrestling. They had a show similar to Survivor Series, not War Games, but 5v5,
Traditional, yeah.
elimination, which I prefer over War
I do
Games.
as well.
Don't even get me started on that.
That's a whole nother convo.
So I was interviewing both teams, and around me were 5 guys and a manager, 6, all part of one team. So I had to go in there, and it's easy telling one person's story with a manager, but having to talk to 5 different people in the span of 1 minute was very difficult.
It's a hand exercise.
So, yeah, to say so. So learning how to do that, I think, taught me a lot about camera dynamics, because every interview I do, I look to make the wrestler or the fighter bigger than me, even if they're not in real life. I'm 5'7". It's not a very, difficult thing to do, but there's instances where it happens. So I always line up the person to the camera to where I'm smaller. I had to do that with 6 others. And talking to each one of them, that aspect of communication, again, being the forefront here, saying, this is what I want, what do you guys think? What order are we doing this in? Or are you just guys going to talk and you want me to just start moving my hand around and we'll take it from there? That taught me a lot about patience. That taught me a lot about learning when to talk and, because I don't want to accidentally interrupt anybody out of the 6 of them.
Yeah.
That taught me a lot about paying attention on the spot and coming up with another question.
So I gotta ask, is there anything from your news training that unexpectedly helped you during your commentary in combat sports and wrestling, or even like mentioned, maybe even vice versa?
I would say, once again, very different stories. News, I cover people who go through tragedy, horrible things. And with wrestling, it's a very different ballgame.
Yeah.
But I think learning how to have a side of empathy and trying to interject how I talk to people in real life in a calm demeanor, trying to tell their story in a very respectful way into wrestling to show empathy for a babyface or even a heel in some matters was one thing that I've really taken and tried to interject into myself in wrestling. So taking the real life aspect of empathy and caring about others, and putting myself in others' shoes, and then putting that into a commentating role for a lot less serious of scenarios, that was a huge takeaway for me.
Jumping back into a bit of the cross appeal for what you covered, do you think wrestling fans cross into MMA more, or MMA fans cross into wrestling?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I don't know. What do you think?
I have a hard time imagining either way, because you see like Cain Velasquez going to WWE, CM Punk going to UFC. There is a public appeal in that sense, and I feel like there's going to be more of that with what's going on with TKO.
I think the biggest that I've seen it was when Ronda Rousey had her stint.
Yeah.
A lot of people who watch fighting reached out to me saying, should I get into WWE? And not as much with CM Punk. Brock Lesnar was another one, though. WWE
huge.
fans crossing over. So I think it's all about the star and the size of the star and the draw that they bring.
Yeah.
And that'll just take fans with them.
That's a good point. I want to get into some personality here. You're a big dinosaur fan, and everyone knows that your favorite dinosaur is the Dilophosaurus, if I'm correct. And what draws you to that dinosaur specifically?
I mean, it's the underdog, Everybody, what's your favorite dinosaur? Everyone's saying T-Rex, Stegosaurus, anything along those lines. Nobody's saying Dilophosaurus.
No.
It's also misrepresented. In Jurassic Park, it has this giant frill that opens up and it spits out venom. It's not like that in real life. So it's not only, misrepresented. People think differently about it than what it actually is in person. You know what I mean? not in person for us. It's misrepresented, slept on, and it's the ultimate underdog. And that's what draws people to the likes of Rey Mysterio.
Yeah. That's
what draws people to the likes of, I don't really watch sports anymore, whatever sports team, when I was a football fan, the Cleveland Browns. I don't know if they're still bad or not. That's what draws people to the underdog to root for them. And I guess that's where the appeal came from.
If the Dilophosaurus was a pro wrestler, what would be its gimmick, entrance theme, and finishing move?
That is a crazy question. I mean, Rey Mysterio kind of summed it up for you right there.
Yeah.
But I would honestly, it would have to be a cruiserweight. So it would have to be doing, I don't know if it could do flippy divey stuff with its stature and its.
I was gonna say it's kind of hard to put a dinosaur in the cruiserweight category, but I know what you mean. Spiritually, it is a cruiserweight.
I mean, if you put it up against a T-Rex, it's, it's Hornswoggle versus the Great Khali.
That's fair enough.
But if we're gonna stick with cruiserweight, let's call it the 5-star Dino Splash.
Okay.
Give it a frog splash, because there's some crossover there.
Yeah.
And then we'll give it a gimmick. Honestly, would be it's a dinosaur. Does it need another gimmick? I think that's the whole.
That's
Luchasaurus
perfect.
is doing just fine.
That's perfect. And you mentioned T-Rex potentially as like an opponent, but in your dream headline prehistoric Wrestlemania, if you could call a match between any two dinosaurs, I know one of them would be the Dilophosaurus. What would be the second?
I don't know. Like I wouldn't have Dilopho in there.
Really? You didn't want to see it get hurt?
No, I mean, like, I love The Miz, but if I were to, if there's any wrestling dream match, like, I don't know if he would be included in the number one thing I would want to see ever.
Then which two would you pick?
It would have to be a contrast in styles, for sure. Let's put T-Rex in there right away. And then, it's a tough one. What would you think? You got some in mind that you'd want to see?
Look, man, I'm not the expert here. I know the basics. And they may not even be the truth. Is the hard reality of it. Maybe something to return on in the future.
Yeah, honestly, Dilopho. I'd say that. I'll just go back to it.
Fair enough.
I think that's the. I haven't thought of my Dino Dream match list yet. That's something I'll think about.
You'll get there, yeah. I have just one more question before we close out. Is there a common misconception people have about either news reporting or wrestling commentary that you'd like to clear up now?
News reporting is that we're all here for you guys. A lot of people, especially in this day and age, and not to get into the weeds of politics and all that stuff, people see the news and they don't find them trustworthy. News is trustworthy. We're here to deliver the messages for you, our viewers, to keep you aware, to keep you alert. We don't have an agenda. At 100% where I don't work, we don't have an agenda. And that's a huge thing I want to put across. When it comes to professional wrestling, I think you should just love it. I think with professional wrestling, everybody's so divided right now online.
It's tribalism in the.
Yeah, I mean, like.
That's lame.
The biggest thing that I hate seeing is people who are like, "Oh, I hope AEW dies." Who
cares?
It's giving more jobs and more TV time and more opportunity and monies for wrestlers and their families. Why would you want to see that die?
It's a weird mindset.
Yeah,
that is more common than people would think.
Enjoy the business. It's not WCW versus Monday Night. Monday Night Raw.
It's been over for 30 years at this point.
We just want everybody to succeed. I bet you they're all friends in real life.
Oh yeah.
Except for some of them, but
other discussions.
Yeah.
For Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, I'm Lance Reece, and I've had the absolute honor and privilege of sharing the studio with Charlie Goldberg, Tucson news reporter and wrestling aficionado. I got to ask Charlie, where can listeners follow your work in Tucson, wrestling, MMA, and are there any upcoming events or broadcasts people should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, Instagram. That's the biggest platform right now for me. Charlie J. Goldberg on Instagram. I am not Bill Goldberg's son. Just gotta put that out there. Sorry to disappoint. And with all wrestling, check out PCW. Tonight, I don't know when this is airing, but January 10th, huge event tonight, and it's just building up things when it comes to the future Is the Infernal Sins, are they going to take over PCW? Is their takeover going to continue, rather? Are we going to see the likes of, Jimmy House, John Wolfgang, Stanley Logan? Are they going to dethrone the bad guys? We'll have to see.
We'll have to see. Well, thank you for your time, Charlie, and thank you for joining me here on Wrestlezona. It has been an absolute blast.
Thank you.
I'm Lance Reece with Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, today's hits and your favorites, and that was our exclusive interview here on Wrestlezona with PCWAZ commentator and Tucson news reporter Charlie Goldberg. Well, that wraps up episode 31 of Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse. Did you enjoy today's episode? Of course, we had our exclusive interview with PCWAZ commentator Charlie Goldberg. Again, if you'd like to find out more about the guest, you can do so on his Instagram at Charlie J. Goldberg. As for us, you can of course reach out to us on Instagram at Wrestlezona, as well as check out our station's website, 887thepulse.com, and my website, Wrestlezona.com, for all the hottest and latest news in pro wrestling, as well as you can access old episodes as podcasts through our archives on our station's website, and again through Wrestlezona.com, also available on our YouTube and Spotify pages. Do you have a favorite wrestler, wrestling theme, favorite wrestling news in the recent news of all the news that you want us to cover? You know where to find us. Again, this has been Lance Reece with Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, and until next time... Support for Wrestlezona comes from the Wrestling Guy Store Phoenix, offering wrestling-themed merchandise and collectibles. More information at WGSPHX.com. That is WGSPHX.com.